I'm here representing Californians Against Higher Taxes, which is a group of more than 200 organizations across the state, small businesses, chambers of commerce, people who are trying to recover in an economic situation where they are not only suffering from the worst economy in the entire United States, with the second highest unemployment in the entire United States, but also the highest and most heavy burden of taxation in the entire country. Unfortunately, I've not yet heard why oil is supposed to pay for education, why not welfare, why not other programs that are unfortunately suffering in this time. Why has it been oil education? I don't know if Professor Matthews has ever been unemployed. Have you ever been unemployed?
Yes, sir, I have.
Good. Well, then you can understand what it's like for the 9,000 people that would be thrown out of work by this oil severance tax proposal. When you add 15% to the cost of doing business, you take oil wells from small oil companies all throughout California who are living on the margin, and you make it no longer profitable or reasonable for them to do business. They have to shut down, and they have to lay off people. Adding 9,000 more unemployed people in California to the situation that exists today in this state, which is unconscionable, with all of California's advantages, that we have the second highest unemployment rate, is unbelievable. Why do we have that unemployment rate? I'll tell you, because corporate income tax in California is the highest in the nation. Our personal income tax is among the highest in the nation. Our sales tax is among the highest in the nation. It is not true. It is misleading. It is not good information for you to be told that oil companies in California do not pay their fair share of taxes. Why? Because in Texas and in Alaska, where they have the oil severance tax, they have a teeny tiny corporate income tax. In California, oil companies pay the highest corporate income tax in the country. In California, companies that do manufacturing, like oil companies when they build oil wells, they pay a sales tax on manufacturing equipment that doesn't exist in most of the United States of America. There are many ways to tax people. You, as an individual, are taxed so many ways. You're taxed with your personal income tax, your sales tax. Every time you pay a car tax if you own a car every year. The same goes for companies of all stripes in the state of California. And it is the burden on taxation, as if you were lucky enough to get that story that I passed around that just was recently published, the burden of taxation on companies in California, on oil companies in California, is even to Alaska and Texas. And in fact, if this were to pass, that would be by far the heaviest burden in the country, and that means people are going to lose jobs. And I'll explain why. I think I got 7 more minutes. Let me introduce Scott McDonald. Actually, because I don't know if we all have a little scoreboard here, but there's Peter gets 6 minutes to affirm his point of view. I have 3 minutes to try to counteract what he said. Now you've got 7 minutes of me trying to explain why this is a bad idea. He'll go for 3 minutes, and it goes back and forth. Anyway. Lincoln and Douglas were talking about freeing the slaves, among other issues at the time. We're talking about freeing people from their jobs, unfortunately, because that will be the impact of the 15% tax on oil severance. Now, unfortunately, this is an ugly reality of taxes. When you take money away from a business that's doing whatever they're doing, whether they're selling candy on the corner or whatever, they have to make that money up. And it doesn't. There may be a cute provision in this initiative that pretends, despite all economic law, that this money cannot be passed on to consumers. If that is the case, the money has to come out of something. And that puts even more pressure on employment. Because you can't run a business just by paying another 15% of your money to someone else. You have to cut that somewhere. And it's going to come out of employment. And when we have to replace the gasoline, the oil that is not going to be produced in California, we're going to have to bring it from overseas. We're going to have to pay higher costs for transportation, higher costs for refining that fuel, and that means there will be higher costs. Not higher costs passed on from this tax, higher costs from just the fact we have to replace the loss of fuel because of this tax. And that will be passed on to consumers in a situation that, as we go, I've already explained, is dire. Let me go through some of the stuff about where we are in California. We already have the second highest gas tax in the nation. We have the highest sales tax. Only 2 states have a higher personal income tax. we have the highest corporate income tax in the western United States, and this would single out one of the state's largest employers with more than 370,000 employees working in the oil industry. But unfortunately, it wouldn't just impact oil workers in the fields in Kern County and in Orange County and in Los Angeles County, where most of the oil wells are. But it would also impact people who depend on it, the dry cleaners, the local shopping market, the local gas station, where people spend their money, and because if they don't have money to spend, you have to cut back at the dry cleaners too. And all those people would suffer. We would have fewer jobs to offer graduating students in California. I know you probably, if you're aware of what's going on in California, you're a little concerned about your possibility of finding a job when you get out of school, whether it's here, or you head to a four-year institution, or maybe it's just trying to find something for the summer, whatever it might be. This job market sucks, and that is not going to be improved by adding 15% to the cost of oil extraction in the state of California. It's going to have wide-ranging and bad effects. The higher taxes are not the answer. When we talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Pete Wilson went to school, California did not spend money on the vast array of things that it spends today. We have a huge spending problem. We have had, in the last 5 years, the biggest tax increase in the history of this state, yet we still have a huge deficit. Why? Because the legislature will not stop spending money. I think you think that education should be the highest priority the state has. But that doesn't mean that the legislature doesn't spend money on a jillion other things, and there's no guarantee that the money that comes from this will go to your education or to the people who follow you. Why is that? Because a lot of it's just going to go to pay the pensions of professors and teachers for underfunded pension programs in the state of California. That is because they have huge pension obligations that are not funded, and this, according to Dan Walters from the Sacramento Bee and other reporters, is really the game that's being played, is to provide all of this money to education and then at the backside take money to fund these pension programs. Unfortunately, that means that education and students in the classroom, whether it is in Golden West College or in kindergarten, will not see the benefits of all this money, even if it were to pass. We need a tax climate that says to businesses, stay here, grow here, employ here, and we don't have that right now. What we have is a tax climate that says to people, hey, when I look at these other states, I can make an easier go of it, and I don't have to, I can pay one company said to move from here to Las Vegas, from Orange County to Las Vegas, I pay my people the same amount of money, and they can afford a whole lot more. And it's just easier to do business that way. We need, in California, to keep an eye on the ball, and the ball is employment, and when you have more people working, you have more people paying taxes, and the state's coffers will grow. This is not just something that oil companies are opposed to. As I said, Californians Against Higher Taxes is more than 200 organizations. The California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Alliance, the California Taxpayers Association, the Industrial Environmental Association, and it goes on and on because these people are beaten down by the tax problem. I'd like to point out also that we have had this discussion as a state and as local communities in California for a long time. We've had it over and over in the last 5 to 6 years. We've had a statewide ballot measure on an oil severance tax that was defeated by 10 points. We've had 2 legislative proposals, both defeated in the California legislature. We've had, just recently, I don't know if you noticed, last year in Los Angeles County, in the city of Los Angeles and the city of Beverly Hills, 2 oil severance tax proposals, both defeated by the voters. It is something we've discussed, it's something we've rejected, it's time to move on to new ideas. We're going around and around. It's unfortunate. I share, and I know that most of the Californians share the concern about the situation we have with education in this state, but we have done a lot on the revenue side of education. How many people ask about the California lottery and where's that money going for education? Well, what happens is the legislature takes the money from the California lottery and on the back side it spends other money that they used to give to education to someone else. We need to stop spending in California. We need to make priorities like education. We need to make education the top priority where we're going to put our money and not on a whole lot of other spending proposals that we can't afford. We've had increases in taxes They haven't solved the problem. So I appreciate you being here. I really am very impressed that you're all there, even if you are getting extra credits. And I appreciate you listening, and I'm happy to answer questions later, but I've only got more to say.